So these houses were just plonked on top of this garbage heap. And the first night people were there was a terrible storm. So they were in mud and garbage up to their hips. And some of the houses blew away. They found them 2 blocks down the road because they were not anchored to the ground. Family Relief went in and put in concrete floors and put in grass and put in a playground for the children and built a little school for them and provides them with food and things. But this is only one out of approximately 480 verified white squatter camps in South Africa. Now, approximately 800,000 out of the 3.5 million whites are living in these conditions. And of that, 1/3 are children. Now, these children are hopeless and helpless. There's no running water. There are no toilets. There's no education, because in South Africa, you do not get a school bus that picks you up and takes you to school. You have to wear a uniform, which you pay for fees, and you have to get transport to and from school, which these people cannot do. So the children, the next generation of white South Africans, are not getting an education. They're underfed. They're suffering from learning disorders and disabilities brought about by malnutrition. Very, very bad situation. Now, I've been talking about this on air for over 3 years and trying to draw attention to the situation in South Africa. But the mainstream media absolutely refuses to even look at the situation, because they were the ones who hatred against the whites in South Africa during the apartheid regime, and they will not now turn around and say, oops, we made a mistake. So I don't know what the hope or lack of hope is for white South Africans.
So you have,
and
Karin,
also since 1994, 70,000 that we can verify, because in South Africa you're not allowed to report on crime and you're not allowed to issue crime figures. So the government every 18 months or so issues their version of the crime figures in South Africa, and it's always much more hopeful than the real situation is. But they're hiding torture and murder deaths. They'll say that a guy was shot in the back 3 times, or a woman that was raped to death died of natural causes. That's what it says on the death certificate. So getting figures out of South Africa is very, very difficult. But we know and can verify 70,000 white people in the last 22 years have been tortured and murdered by blacks. Now, what they do is they tie up the father and they rape the mother and the daughters literally to death. They use broken bottles, sharpened broomsticks. They burn the children with boiling water. They drowned a 12-year-old boy in boiling water. They use hot irons to torture them with. They pour oil down their throats and set it alight. They sometimes sit in the house for 3 or 4 days while they torture the family to death. And then they leave, having stolen absolutely nothing. Nothing. They don't take a thing. And yet in South Africa, that is classified as ordinary crime. Ordinary crime. It is inhumane.
It's barbaric.
To a degree that it's very, very hard to talk about.
Karin.
But Stephen, somebody has to.
Yes.
Somebody has to put the facts out there and make people aware and get help for these people.
Again, we have Karin with us, a native-born South African, and this is Stephen Hawk from the Christian Mythbuster Karin, when did you come to the United States? How long were you? How long did you reside in South Africa? You're a native of South Africa, correct?
Yes. Yes, only second generation.
Karin?
My entire
there we go.
family.
Do we have you back, Karin?
There we go.
Yeah, and I've got both of you. Thank you.
Let me, Karin.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Stephen Hawk of the Christian Mythbuster Series.com. I have with us Karin and Leigh a native-born South African, and we're having we're having some technical difficulties here, but we're going to try to get by. Karin, I'll try to just eliminate that part and insert the story that you gave up to this point. So why don't you introduce Lay, and Lay, talk about yourself a little bit and what's going on in your world.
Well, this is Lee Oxley Dupree, who is the director of South African Family Relief Project. We met online. We've never met in person. We met online some 3 years ago because I very much admired what she was trying to achieve. And sort of by proxy, I've become the fundraiser for them in the United States because they don't have a very big on-air voice here. And South Africans donate clothing and furniture and sometimes food, but because their situation is so desperate in South Africa, they don't have money to donate. Now, you can hardly barter some carrots for a doctor's appointment. So their foundation really, really needs cash input. So
how do you donate to that?
They have a web page, which is, I'll put the link up for you, or you can my website, which is radiofreesouthafrica.com. It goes straight to them, so you can donate either on their web page, which is SAFRPSA.org. That's South African Family Relief Project SA.org. They have a donate button there, and they are in desperate need of funds. They do sterling work. They have helped so many tens of thousands of the dispossessed whites in South Africa. And I have supported in the past until I've fallen on my face. I've supported other teams of people in South Africa, but South African Family Relief, they are an excellent organization. They're all volunteers. They take no money for themselves. Every cent that you donate goes to the people that need it.
Well, that's good to know. Karin, before I lost you, I was trying to ask you, how long, you're native-born South African, how long did you live there, and how long have you been an American citizen?
I lived there until I was 57, so half a century, and I became an official African American in September of last year. I got my citizenship after a very long, hard, difficult path.
So you've seen it all.
Yep. I was born in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And you know the way Zimbabwe went under Mad Bob Mugabe. So we lived through that, then went to Namibia, lived through horror in Namibia, went to South Africa. It got even worse there. I mean, my father and my brother were shot on their farm by black invaders. My sister was raped. My daughter was mugged. My brother, who was in the police force, was dragged through the window of his police vehicle, beaten up and left in the street for dead. So I've experienced this firsthand.
So this is essentially a this is race-based tension. It's black on white. I mean, people don't understand it. What is behind this and you also mentioned the mainstream media will not help. How do you think they're linked to this in any way?
Well, prior to 1994, the apartheid government was much maligned around the world. You know that. There were rallies all around the world. People were waving their lighters in the air and shouting about the terrible whites in South Africa and how we were oppressing the blacks and how we consigned them to unlivable circumstances, etc., etc. Well, you have to understand the history of South Africa to even begin to understand apartheid. But apartheid, translated, means separateness. Now, the whites in South Africa were never a majority, and when they landed in the Cape in South Africa, there were no blacks to be found. The Dutch East India Company landed in the Cape to start a supply station for their ships going to the east. They had no intention of colonizing South Africa. They just wanted to have a place where they could resupply their ships with fresh water, vegetables, fruit, and meat. Now, when they landed there, there was only a small race of blacks living in the Cape, and they have nothing in common with the black races of Africa. They're small, little, almost orange-skinned people called the Khoi. If anybody knows what a bushman is, that's what these people look like. They were isolated groups of them, very seldom more than family groups of 7 or so. And it was 120 years after the white settlers arrived in the Cape that they first met with black tribes coming down from the north, coming south, and the white settlers were moving north to get away from what they considered taxation without representation in the Cape. That's the most simplified method of saying it.
Now is this us versus them mentality similar to what we're seeing in the United States, you think, or is there history behind this? And do they feel threatened somehow by the whites? Are they trying to take back land? I mean, do you have any insight into that? You know, what this stems from?
Well, they are trying to take back land because they say that the whites stole the land from the blacks. However, the whites settled in unsettled areas where there were not blacks. And I mean, in that 400 years, the whites had bought land, bought and sold and traded and whatever for land in South Africa. A third of the land in South Africa is owned by blacks, and another huge percentage of it is owned by the state. But it suits the government's purposes to unite the 13 or more differing tribes in South Africa who are natural enemies of each other. They now have a common enemy, the whites. And so they unite against the white enemy, and they are taught in school as here you need to give reparations for slavery. In South Africa, you need to give the blacks reparations for apartheid. Now, the apartheid system lasted 48 years. That's all. Out of the entire history of South Africa, 48 years was the apartheid system. The new system at the ANC has already been 22 years. So I don't know when the hatred for the white based on apartheid ends and when a new dispensation begins. But they are told daily by the government and all the opposing black political parties that the whites stole.
Karin, is this an isolated thing, certain groups of blacks, or do they all essentially agree on this, and do they all gang up on the whites? I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yes, it is a combined force felt by many whites to be steered by the government to get rid of the whites, as happened in Zimbabwe.
So now, the world essentially genocide. You see this as genocide.
It is genocide. Gregory Stanton of Genocide Watch, which is an American-based organization, very, very left-leaning. He was extremely outspoken against the apartheid regime. He did 2 visits to South Africa. They have put white South Africans on level 6 of 8 levels of genocide. 6 being the preparation phase, 7 being it happening, and 8 being the denial phase. They have put white South Africans on level 6, on the danger level of genocide happening to them. So it is not just a me thing or a white South African thing. It is an international standard being met in South Africa for genocide.
And why did you say that the mainstream media won't touch this, or they don't? If they do, it's very secluded and not really noticed.
Well, the liberal press during the apartheid years was one loud voice against these hateful whites who are oppressing and murdering the blacks at a rate of tens of thousands, these poor blacks are dying. They're not being educated. They're not being fed. They're not, Nelson Mandela himself was a product of universities for blacks in South Africa. He was a lawyer. And so was Gandhi, just by the way. He became a lawyer in South Africa. So their education system was not what your press has made it out to be. The things we are accused of doing to the blacks, some of which are true. They were not first-class citizens. They did not have the vote. I agree with all of that, and I'm not apologizing or praising the apartheid system. I'm just trying to explain that the press made it out to be 500 times worse than it really was. And then the European countries put sanctions against South Africa, which brought us to our knees and led to us handing the country over to the African National Congress, which is a communist, totally communist government that we live under now.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because if I understand correctly, the majority of South Africa are Christian, are they not? And you're saying that this party is actually communist. Are the blacks that are actually attacking the whites, are they communists? Are they Islam? Are they? I mean, I've heard different stories. Some say that these are Christians as well. I don't understand how that could be. It would make more sense to me coming from North Africa that it would be, Islamic based. But
no, they're not Islamic. They call themselves Christians, but Stephen, they have a tribal way of living. So there's the chief and there's the witch doctor called the Zangoma. Now, they are very, very firm believers in what the witch doctor tells them. And the witch doctor will provide you with muti, which is a medicine made from who knows what, including human body parts. The stronger the muti, the more bits of human people it has in it. They will give you a muti for anything that ails you, so they can curse your enemies, make people love you, whatever. Now, I cannot see how Christianity and this worship of the witch doctor can go hand in hand.
Well, it can't. No. So no. They're professing Christians, but
yeah.
but
yes,
they don't
absolutely.
They don't live it. And this whatever you call it, voodoo, this tribalism is they all subscribe to it, would you say, or
the majority? I hate to generalize, Stephen, but the majority, because they still, the chief rules everything. The Zulus, for instance, which are the biggest group of blacks in South Africa, they have a king, they have their own area where they live. What the king says goes. There's no question about that. So it's a very tribal, nationalistic, really. If you think of tribalism, it's kind of nationalism, isn't it? Only for the black.
The South African whites are primarily Christian, is it?
Yes. Oh, yes. Staunchly. They had a meeting this weekend to pray for South Africa. 1 million people turned up at this prayer meeting with Angus Buchan. It's unbelievable how strongly these people, their faith is. They believe that God will save them from this. There's a prophet, or there was a prophet called Sina van Rensburg. He's a South African prophet, and he prophesied before he died many of the things that are happening and he prophesied that the whites will run South Africa again. Now, hopeless as it seems, the South African whites firmly and staunchly believe that God will come to their rescue.
And what percentage did you say the whites were that were receiving this persecution?
Less than 8%.
Less than 8%?
Yeah.
And Lee, jump in any time and give your perspective of this. I mean, you're living it now, if I understand, correct?
That's correct. Many people talk about the politics and the racial laws and all of that, but like you say, we're living it at the moment. There's not a single day that goes by that we do not wake up to some horrific farm attack, home invasion, where torture has taken place in such a horrifying manner. You cannot wrap your head around it. And then I work in squatter camps where these destitute folk have been forced into, basically because of the racist laws that prohibits them from employment. So you get mothers and fathers who are educated people, but because of the laws that have been put in place, they have lost absolutely everything and land up in these horrific conditions with no hope of ever getting out.
Ladies, why should Americans put this issue as a utmost highest priority? You know, I say that in a sense like when they're looking at the Syrian refugees or this or that. You know, why should this be at the top of the list?
Because, Stephen, this was the blueprint for the rest of the world. They brought this system in 22 years ago in South Africa to see whether they could annihilate the white Christian race without the rest of the world paying attention. They have achieved it, and recently, as you know, these black hordes have surged into Europe, coming into the United States, gone to the UK, with little or no resistance from the governments there. And they are suffering exactly what the South Africans have suffered for 22 years. They are having the rape, the bombings, the murders, the looting, the crime levels. All of it is happening in the rest of the world now. And South Africa was the blueprint for this. And that is why people should pay attention to what their eventual fate will be if they allow this to continue.
Well, interesting. So you're saying this is all part of the agenda. What is happening in the West is all part of the agenda.
Yes.
This white genocide, and it makes sense. And the hubris is just beyond me to see how these people, you know, who have white privilege themselves, as they call it, can be so against the white race, which, you know, has brought a lot to the world. You know, I'm going to, you know, I try not to base things on race at all, but I mean, if you want to look at it from that perspective, they have definitely done a lot for the world. But how has this been brought to the UN or anything? I mean, what is the kind of reaction you get, or is it just always ignored? You know, go ahead.
A team has gone to the United Nations, a Front National, a white political party, very tiny little party with no voice in Parliament, has been to the UN. Didn't AfriForum or one of those go to the UN as well, Lee?
The Transvaal Agricultural Union also went.
Yes, they also went.
AfriForum, yes, AfriForum went with them.
And they'd only been speaking 5 minutes, and the ANC brought them to silence, did they not?
That is correct. That's correct. It was, if it wasn't for the American delegate that stood up and demanded to hear our people speak, I don't know if we would have had a chance to speak, because she kept on twice shouting our delegates down. But then the American delegate stood up and she said that she wanted to hear what the white South Africans wanted to say.
However, that was over a year ago, probably about 18 months ago, and we've heard nothing.
That's correct.
And then they sent a delegation to the Unrepresented People's Organization meeting in Australia that was also over a year ago, and stated our case to them, because we do have a case as an unrepresented people, but nothing has come of that either. And in the CODESA agreements that were signed prior to 1994, the whites were guaranteed self-determination, that they could have their own place to live safely. However, every time any white organization in South Africa asks the government to please sit down and discuss this, because we need to have our own place where we can be safe, the government just keeps putting it off and fobbing them off. So although we have all these guarantees of safety and the right to health, life and happiness,
which seems to make
none of
them
them are being enforced.
Complicit because it's not on their agenda, so they brush it aside. It's just it goes into the territory of conspiracies, and I think people automatically want to shun it. They want to believe what they see on television every day, and more and more people are waking up. So that's why we need these little side broadcasts. We're small, we're outfinanced, but we're not outnumbered. So let's talk about the naysayers. Like if someone like myself, this was all new to me. If someone like myself goes on the internet and types in atrocities to South Africans or genocide in South Africa, you'll get all these naysayers that come up and say that it's not true. And I think I ran across a video of some white guy with a couple black friends saying, making jest of it and getting in his face and saying, "Do you want to kill me just because I'm white?" And ha ha ha, making a joke about it, like it doesn't exist. So you have the very people there working against what you're doing, and how do you respond to that? I mean, is that a common thing too?
Kind of lost you there, but I've got the gist of your question. Stephen, if you saw my email and if you saw the comments on the videos that I put out, they cannot attack me on facts. That's what I talk about, is facts, because they attack me on a personal level. And for a very long time, that really got to me, because I'm a little softy, I'm a marshmallow inside, and it really hurt that these people who don't know a thing about me should say that I deserve to be necklaced. And it's great that I'm living in Texas because I could have a sheep like the Ku Klux Klan, because that's who I am. And worse, much worse things than that. But at the same time, you have to grow a thicker skin and stand up against the naysayers and just present facts that they can't argue with. Because as you say, if you Google farm murders in South Africa, you are going to get sick from the pictures that you will find. Absolutely sick.
And I've seen them. Yeah, I agree.
Nobody can argue the facts that I tell you, and that is why I don't branch off into the Jewish question or the Illuminati or any of those things, because you don't have facts to back you up. I talk about the number of deaths, the ANC's complicity, the murders, the camps that these people live in, the terrible conditions they have, the action, because nobody can argue with facts. And that's the only way to deal with the naysayers. I don't know how else to deal with them except bombard them with the facts. And a lot of white South Africans are naysayers as well.
Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose that is? There's so many naysayers. Just to feed us disinformation, or are you there?
I do believe that if you are rich in South Africa, you live in a gated community, you don't drive past these camps every day, they don't impact on your life really. And until the day that you are hijacked or broken into, or a member of your family murdered, it's easy. When you have a foreign visa in your passport and money offshore, it's easy to say that everything's fine here because I'm still making money.
No, we see that, Karin. We see families that are being compliant with their businesses. That's why they are rich. That's why they are making so much money. They are employing 90% black and maybe 10% white, if that. And they are living off the fat of the land and complying with the law. So when they are attacked, because when they come onto your property, 7 up to 15 of them, raping your wife, tying up your husband, killing your children, and torturing them for hours, then you realize, but they don't ask you, are you being do you vote for? Who do you stand for? Do you vote for the ANC or the EFF or whatever? The only criteria that your skin is white.
You're white. I mean, Lee, those guys in court the other day, they were taken to court for the torture and murder of an old couple and an 84-year-old woman that they raped to death. And their answer was, we did it because she was white.
Correct.
And that was the answer in court. And they get away with it. They get away with it. But if you defend yourself when they come onto your property, you will be arrested for murder or attempted murder. And the people who attacked you will walk.
You know, as horrendous as this whole thing is, God does know what is going on. And we just don't know how long this has to be endured. But as unpleasant as it is, you know, I think it's important to bring up the naysayers because that's what people see. And people actually, I think, might like to hear that because they don't want to believe it.
Yes.
So I mean, what do you think? It's a very small percentage of the naysayers. Do most whites experience this type of persecution? What's a typical day for a white person in South Africa? I mean, do you have to look over your shoulder every minute?
Lee, you answer.
Yes. Well, I mean, we live on a farm, and you've got to make sure before you go out your home that your surroundings are safe. When you get into your vehicle, you lock your doors. You go to the driveway, drive to the driveway. Usually we try and be more than one in the vehicle because being alone in your vehicle, opening your gate makes you a target. Not everybody can afford electricity. We don't have electricity where we are. Not everybody can afford a beautiful sliding gate with a gate motor and a remote that opens up. So we are forced to get out of our vehicles and open up the gate. That is chance where you can be attacked. When you drive, you make sure that your doors are locked. You look around and the same. If your dogs do not come to your gate when you arrive, there's something wrong. We have to look at aspects of safety. If we drive somewhere, we let a family member know where we are going. So that if anything happens or the person is late, we make sure that we know where everybody is at all times. We've got a security thing on our phones. It pinpoints your location if you are in distress, and that's what you live with every single day.
Why don't you carry carry arms to protect yourself as well?
1994, Karin, you can answer that one.
Yeah, they confiscated all white firearms because under the National Party, you had to register your firearms. So when the ANC government took over, they obviously had the register of firearms and they confiscated them all. Now, the people were told that hand in your firearm at the police station, apply for a new license under the new government, and then your firearm will be given back to you once you get your license. Well, a very, very small percentage of people were given licenses. And right now, there is another push to hand in any remaining firearms.
That's correct.
Amnesty. So you won't be arrested if you go and hand in illegal firearms right now. But the point is, so whites are not allowed to defend themselves. And even if you defend yourself with a knife, a baseball bat, whatever, when your house is
or
broken,
a gas gun,
whatever, you will be arrested.
That's correct. Arrested.
You will be arrested if you defend yourself against the blacks. You will be arrested.
So there's no judicial court process there. You're just automatically the guilty one, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, because you're white.
Because you're white.
Also, these guns that were handed into the police, they are being rented out to criminals at about $15 a day.
And then plus that are stolen in police lockup and in the army bases. They are rented out and stolen.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to actually wrap my head around this. So you can't trust the police either.
Oh no,
No,
No.
The
sir,
police are
that's the
corrupt.
biggest mistake you can make.
Oh,
So are you okay, Leigh, for instance, you're still there. Are you seeing friends drop off at a regular rate? Like, do you have friends that are murdered from a year ago or anything like that, or family? I mean,
Um, I've, I've had friends that have been murdered, yes. Um,
I know
but
Karin told her story,
yeah,
which is horrific.
my previous partner went to go and drop off someone at the airport, and he was hijacked. 6 weeks later, his body was found next to the road, and his vehicle in a black area called Ivory Park, stripped, and he was beaten to death and left on the side of the road.
So these things aren't broadcasted either, so you don't know. You only know by word of
No,
mouth.
no. Um,
correct.
there is a whole thing going on in South Africa at the moment. There are two towns in South Africa, Coligny and Lichtenburg. They are being burned to the ground by South Africans. And today, this morning, I saw on Facebook, why is this not in the news? The police have run out of rubber bullets.
Ammunition, yeah.
They've retreated from the one town. The stores have been looted. The houses have been burnt down. These two towns are on fire, and yet there's nothing on TV or in the media about it. People are learning
Yesterday morning, at about let's say 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, we heard over our security radios of an elderly couple that was trapped in the shop, and they were begging for help for the police, but the police could not get there. Luckily, some family members came through with their truck and saved them from their shop. They looted everything.
Is the police force all black? I mean, do they hire white people as well?
majority black.
They are
Pardon me?
predominant.
Pardon me?
They do have some. They do have some blacks, but not some whites, but not very many.
And
Yeah,
the whites contribute to this injustice as well against their own people. I mean, they have to
I
do.
don't know the answer to that, Lee.
No, I don't know the answer to that either. I mean, they see it as a job. I have a friend in the police force. She knows of so many corrupt cops. She's a white female, and she's thinking of immigrating to Europe, or wherever she wants to go. She says she can't take it anymore. Blacks who have been there less time that she has been are being offered higher positions and rank, and she's been there for many years, and she's still in the same position. So she has no chance of forwarding her career whatsoever.
Well,
But then, Stephen, there's also this. Where are these people going to go? Because you cannot, unless the United Nations or Amnesty International have designated you with refugee status, no country will take you as a refugee. So, firstly, that 800,000 in camps have not got the money to get visas and get out.
yeah.
And the ones who can get out, there's not a country that will take you. They will not take you as a refugee. And we don't qualify for immigrant status in most countries because you need very high qualifications or lots of money to be an immigrant. I fortunately was married to an American, but the path to get citizenship here was horrendously difficult and very, very expensive.
Yeah. That's the inevitable question. Why don't they get out? But I know how difficult it can be, not only to go through the refugee process, but also to have the funds. And then there's always the people that have the hope that things are going to get better and they want to stay in their own country. I understand that. So that's not an issue with me. I just want to get the word out. we need some historical revisionism. We really do. There's a lot of lies out there. One that I know about is that this focus on the blacks being slaves, when essentially every race has almost been a slave. There was plenty of white people that have been slaves as well, and it's just hypocritical to hold one race accountable for something like that. We all need to move on.
Not Stephen, I should have.
That's okay. We'll have to wrap it up soon anyway now. But what I was saying was, we just people in general need to have a change of heart and carry on, because we've all been slaves. You look at history. If you listen to the mainstream, you'll think there was only a select few that have been targeted, but we've all been slaves in one way or another. So it's not an excuse. What they're doing is no excuse. And it's an atrocity. It needs to be heard. If you ladies have any channels where we could possibly try to contact representatives, I'll do whatever I can, and we'll just try to push this and hopefully, just never be silenced.
Yeah, well, I have many times been tempted to just give up, because it's an exhausting, thankless task. But I just feel that if I give up, who's going to be the voice for these people in the United States? There are not people queuing up at the door begging to talk about this. So I just do what I can. With much, as I've said to you, much hatred directed at me and much skepticism directed at me, but somebody has to do it. And Lee is an absolute unsung hero for the things that she does for the white South Africans. I wish we had more time so she could talk about the farm project that she's working on.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, tell about the farm.
Thank you. I've been working in these camps. I've seen these horrid conditions. They live in tin shacks or whatever they can scrounge around to build a little house with. It's bare soil. There's hardly any water. There's no electricity. And living in a tin shack with your 3 little children, trying to make ends meet, trying to cook, trying to make fire, trying to bath your children in a bucket. There are no proper toilets. So we wanted to start this farm project, a self-sustainable project where we reskill these folks and integrate them back into society, teaching them to earn a living for themselves. So yes, we've just put up 5 houses. They are small little houses, but they are neat and secure. And we want to teach them but to have value in life. We want to give them a hand up instead of a handout all the time. It's so difficult.
Yes? I'm sorry. You bring this up and you want to give them values and everything, and it just made me think, what kind of an education system are whites able to get in South Africa?
Lee, you're the expert on this.
They have downgraded our education system to such a stage. Let's take the universities, for example. You have 4 students. They have all matriculated and they're all wanting to enter university. So if you are a black person, your qualifying mark is only 65% in order to go and study at university. If you are an Indian, it has to be, for example, 75%. If you are a colored, it has to be 80%. And if you are a white person, it has to be 90% in order for you to go to university. That's the
criteria,
the marking system. And they feel that because they were previously disadvantaged, they don't have to have such high marks in order to go and study to be a doctor or a surgeon. They only have to pass with 65%.
What about the regular school system? Like in America, we have kindergarten through 12th grade before you even go on to college. What do you have in South Africa?
exactly the same.
We have a grade R, which is the year before you go to grade 1, and that's to prepare the child for school, teaching him to count and know colors and things like that, and then from grade 1 up to matric.
Are whites a minority in the schools as well?
We have 53 million Black South Africans, and we are only 4.5 white South Africans. And then we have an additional plus minus 30 million illegals in South Africa. So we are a very, very tiny group against nearly 70 million.
It sounds like, what is there, a bunch of enclaves set up in South Africa? That's the way America is becoming.
No, the whites are scattered all over the place. It's not kind of this is a black town and this is a white town. It's not
okay.
So we're outnumbered even more everywhere because we are so
scattered,
practically isolated. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes it perhaps even worse. I don't know, unless they go in and raid a whole village or something like that. I suppose that could happen, but. Okay.
No, so there's no way that we can vote the system out, the corrupt government. We are only 4.5 million. They are 53 million. So we need international intervention. Mm-hmm. We cannot save ourselves. We can try and feed and clothe and assist, but getting the government to have a proper free democracy for everyone, that's not going to happen very, very soon.
Well, keep the faith. Let's post as much information as we can, and Karin, you said you'd give me links and everything, so people can go there and perhaps donate or write their representatives or somehow get this broadcasted in any way, shape, or form.
We are in the process of having, we're trying to organize to get it hand delivered, but we are in the process of delivering a letter to every single member of Congress about the situation in South Africa. And then I will post it on social media, do videos about it, encouraging people to follow up with their member of Congress, the same or similar letter. That should happen within the next couple of weeks, because we have written to individual members of Congress with absolutely no response whatsoever, not even the normal standard we have heard from you and I'm doing such a good job, vote for me. Not even that. They don't even acknowledge that we've written to them.
Well,
so we try
almost
delivered.
Yeah. Well, don't get this. I mean, it is very discouraging, but don't give up. You almost wonder if you should sign it in blood and send it. Maybe that would get their attention.
Pretty much. Send them my father's deathbed photograph, and maybe that'll get their attention.
Yeah. I mean, people need to wake up. And Christians are being persecuted on a worldwide scale right now. Even in Europe. Well,
they're wanting to take Christianity out of our schools now as well.
Yes.
So we are following the same suit as the rest of the other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies. Well, let's wrap this up. And Karin, you have my email. Let's get posted whatever we can and go from there.
I put the link in the messages for Lee's website and for my own, but you can donate to either site and it gets to Lee. And as I said before, this is the one charity that I can absolutely 100% guarantee that every penny donated goes where it's needed. And also remember that the exchange rate, if you give $30 American, it can feed a family of 4 for a weekly.
That is correct. For a family of 4, for an entire week, $30 can put food in these babies' mouths. And if we don't have your support, I don't know what we're going to do. It's winter. It's bitterly cold. We don't have snow like you guys do. But if you look at a 2- or 3-year-old is hungry and you haven't got anything to feed them, besides bread or maize meal. It's devastating for me
Is
to
there?
go and say
I'm
I don't
sorry.
have enough to give to everybody.
I'm sorry. Karen had alluded to this earlier, but is there a welfare system for to help these
There
people?
is,
And
there
is
is.
is it
Um,
consistent? I mean, is it reliable?
no, it's not, because if you live in a squatter camp, you have to the criteria says that you have to bring your utility bill, proof of residence, ID document, um, everything into when you apply. But these people live in a squatter camp. They have got no water bill or proof of residence. So until they have that, they cannot apply for assistance.
Quickly
And I
define.
cannot lie on 700 applications and say they all live with me. I'm going to land into very big trouble if I do that.
Yeah,
Um,
quickly
so,
define.
and then also it takes forever to be granted.
Quickly define what a squatter camp is.
Well, we have different camps. Squatter camp is government-owned land, and they allow the people to basically squat there. But they can be moved at any time. It is designated land, and they may not build permanent structures. They may not build toilet facilities. Everything is temporary structures. Then you have privately owned land, which are farmers. They are usually very old, and they take in these destitute folk in order to have more people on their property for safety reasons. But they don't have the money to build these people houses and feed them, and so they are also left to their own defenses. They've got to fend for themselves. Some of the owners want a rental, 50 rand a month or a week. So you have these folks standing at intersections begging for food and for their rental money.
Do you try to farm? Make your own gardens to eat.
Oh yes, but Amanziville, you cannot, because they have, after the group of people lost a 9-year court battle, they were put on an old landfill. So they only covered it with topsoil, and 2 weeks after these folks were moved forcibly, the rain washed all the topsoil away, and all the garbage protrudes out from the soil. So it's dangerous for them to plant. They have barely enough, you know, materials to build their own little houses, let alone planter boxes and compost and topsoil, and it's we are coping to feed and clothe. That is the biggest necessity at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. So your support for the farmers is probably very essential. Yet the farmers are being killed. Do you think that has anything to do with it? Do you think they're killing the farmers to starve off the whites in some way or something like that?
Well, sir, they believe that because they are previously disadvantaged, they are owed the land. If you look at black on black crime and you compare it with the black on white crime, there's a vast difference, and the difference is the torture. Yes, you do get a lot of black on black crime. They stab and they shoot each other, but when it comes to the farm murders, the torture that goes with it is unspeakable. How do
Yeah,
you take a drill and drill holes in a woman's entire body? That is pure hate.
yeah. There's hatred and barbaric, and those people should be prosecuted to the highest. But we have to wrap it up now. And thank you for your time, ladies. And let me know if let me know what I can do on my end. I'm limited, but I'll try.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you for this opportunity for getting our message out.
Sure. Okay, well,
Thank you, sir.
yeah, you're welcome. Hang in there, keep the faith, and we'll talk again, hopefully.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.